I think we all listened very carefully to your speech, Minister, and to the Minister Murphy's speech. And I agree with him that supply is the key. It's the absolute key to breaking this logjam. But the point is, it's during the last 8 years that for most of that time, supply just hasn't happened. And I agree very much with my colleague, Deputy Wallace, that you had the choice of either empowering the local authorities or to set up a state-building company which would actually build on out from the sites that they have. You asked, for example, about to show you the situations. I mean, we meet people who are 2 years and 2 years plus in homeless accommodation week in, week out. But I can take you to at least a half a dozen large sites which are partially or totally owned, say, by Dublin City Council, and which there has been no movement for not just even the last 8 years, but for the last 28 years. And that is the problem. And it's because, in many respects, they have been hamstrung legally by the situation. I mean, you ask, the Minister asked, Minister Murphy asked, what would you do different, in terms of... Now, we've had to drag you kicking and screaming into every single little improvement, whether it was addressing to some extent the rights of tenants, addressing the situation with rents, to begin to have even a minuscule direct build housing programme for the councils and the AHBs. We dragged you kicking and screaming, and the Minister who served as Minister for Finance for most of the last 8 years, Deputy Noon, and he always put the interests of banks and the financial sector in front of the interests of homeless people. That's the reality, and Deputy Donoghue has continued that policy by and large right down to the present, and that's the sad reality of this government. And you're talking about emergency powers. Well, the emergency powers that were adopted in a few hours in 2008, people came in here. I was one of those with the Labour Party colleagues at the time. We stood alone against the blanket bank guarantee, and we knew exactly, and Deputy Noonan, by the way, we were both on the back benches here, we knew exactly what the meaning of the blanket bank guarantee was. We stood against it. Now, we've got an omnibus bill. You've got an omnibus bill there. The Minister was discussing it this morning. If a hard Brexit happens, we'll come in here and in about 2 or 3 hours we will legislate across the board to protect this country and protect our people in the north. That's what we're going to do. We know we're going to do it. But you won't do it for the homeless people. You're refusing to take action for those 10,000 people, or 13,000 as Deputy O'Brien says, for the 4,000, 8,000 homeless children. You're just going ahead in this glacial progress fashion. You won't take the drastic action that's necessary to take, which has been outlined. Deputy Wallace is the most experienced of us, but like others in this chamber, I've worked on building sites as well, and we know, and when I worked on sites, in fact, we were building a very large housing development in South County Dublin for Dublin City Council. A major development in West Clondalkin, in East Clondalkin rather, for Dublin City Council. We know what has been done, we know what can be done. You refuse to do it, and it's all pie in the sky. 2020, 2021, 2022, the 2020s actually can. Looks like this, it'll be the roaring 20s again. It'll be fabulous. Now, we'll have houses coming on stream year in, year out. But the problem is, so many families have suffered so hard. You could stop it. We could do it in a couple of weeks, get moving on some of those sites. In DBN alone, we probably could build, 15 or 20,000 houses. We could do it over a couple of years with the proper powers, either for Dublin City Council or for the 4 Dublin councils together, because Dublin City and Fingal and South Dublin and Dún Laoghaire, we're inextricably this. We're all dubs. We all wear the blue shirt, etc., etc. And when we have to put it on to support our brilliant Gaelic teams, we need to work together on housing as well, as we always did in the past. When Blanche was built, when Clondalkin was built, when Lucan was built, and when all the inner suburbs were built. So, Minister, unfortunately, you failed in a key remit, and I think this whole issue and the failures in health, they're going to lead to a very serious depletion of the ranks of the Fine Gael party in the forthcoming general election. Thanks, Ken.
Now we have to consider